Mason never planned to be a hero. He was just a repair tech, sent to a backwater moon called Valyrinine. Fixing broken mining equipment and keeping his head low, he didn't care about alien politics. He didn't want drama. He just wanted to finish his contract and go home. But that day, everything changed. A supply drone had crashed near one of the outer villages. Mason took his gear and went to check it out. The air was dry. The ground cracked from last week's tremors. Then he heard screaming, high-pitched, panicked. It was coming from the old well tower. He ran toward the sound, heart pounding. When he reached it, the stone base had collapsed. 2 alien girls were trapped under rubble. One was bleeding from her leg, the other held her protectively, eyes wild with fear. They were beautiful, strange, with lavender skin, glowing eyes, and long hair like woven silver. Mason didn't stop to think. He dropped his pack, lifted stones with trembling arms. He pulled the wounded one out first, then helped the second girl climb free. They both clung to him, shivering. He used his med kit, cleaned the wounds, wrapped bandages around the girl's leg, gave them both water from his flask. "You're safe now," he whispered. "You're okay." The girls stared at him in silence. Then they touched their foreheads to his chest, a gesture he didn't understand. But it felt peaceful. Before leaving, he gave them each a necklace. Nothing fancy, just carved stone tokens from his emergency pouch. "I made these when I was bored," he said with a chuckle. "Here's something to remember today by." The girls gasped softly. They looked at the tokens like treasure, then said one word together. "Husband." Mason blinked. "Wait, what?" But they only smiled and nodded again. "Husband." He figured it was a translation glitch. He helped them walk back to their village, then returned to his base, tired but proud. The next morning, a knock came at his door. He opened it, and there they were again, the 2 girls dressed in bright ceremonial robes. One held flowers, the other a carved staff. Behind them stood a group of village elders, smiling, singing, and clapping slowly. Mason stared. "What is going on?" The older girl stepped forward. "I am Ziri," she said proudly. "You saved me from death." The quiet one added, "I am Luma. You gave me your life token. You are now our husband." They said in unison, "And today is our joining." Mason's jaw dropped. "Wait, no joining, no marrying. I was just helping." The elders didn't stop smiling. A bell rang from the village square. People began to gather. Drums started to play. Mason took a step back. "There's been a mistake," he said. "This is all a big misunderstanding." But Ziri took his hand and pressed it to her heart. "In our world, to save a life is sacred," she said. "To give a bonding token means forever." Luma nodded. "You honored us," she said softly. "We now honor you." Mason looked around. He was surrounded. Alien kids threw flower petals at his boots. A goat-like creature tried to lick his hand. "How do I explain I didn't mean it like that?" he muttered. The celebration began whether he liked it or not. Food was served, songs were sung. Ziri sat beside him with glowing pride. Luma fed him fruit with shy eyes. Villagers patted his back and called him husband of 2, a title that made his brain spin. That night, alone in the guest hut, Mason sat on the bed with his head in his hands. "I just gave them necklaces," he whispered to himself. "That's all I did." But deep inside, he knew he had stepped into something far bigger than kindness, something sacred and very, very complicated. He looked at the doorway. Ziri stood there with crossed arms, confident. Luma peeked from behind her with soft eyes. "Good night, husband." They both said together. Mason groaned. "This is not how I thought my week would go." Mason woke up to chanting. At first, he thought it was a dream. Then the smell of roasted fruit and flower smoke filled the air. He sat up, groggy and confused. The sun beamed through the woven walls of the hut, and outside music, laughter, and dancing echoed through the village. He rubbed his eyes and groaned. Please tell me it's not wedding day again. Before he could stand, the door flap opened. Ziri marched in with glowing paint on her cheeks. Today is the second day of bonding, she said proudly. Today we paint you as one of us. Mason blinked. Second day. You mean there's more than one? Ziri grinned. Of course, our union has 3 days of celebration. Before Mason could protest, Luma stepped inside. She carried a bowl of blue paint and small feathers. She smiled shyly and said, "Sit, husband." Mason froze. "Oh, Khaleesan," he said, holding up both hands. "There's been a big mistake." Ziri tilted her head. "Mistake?" "Yes," he said, standing. "I didn't mean to bond with anyone. I gave those tokens as a gift, like friendship." Luma looked hurt. "You don't wish to be our mate," she whispered. "No. I mean," Mason panicked. "I didn't know what it meant." Ziri crossed her arms. "Are you saying you touched our hearts without meaning it?" Mason opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He sighed and sat back down. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said softly. "I'm just not used to this." Ziri knelt beside him. "On your world, kindness is just kindness," she said. "But here, saving someone's life. It means you are now part of them," Luma added quietly. "And when you gave us the tokens, you gave a piece of your spirit." Mason looked between them. They weren't trying to trap him. They truly believed this was real. Then Ziri smiled. "But don't worry," she said. "There's a way to undo the bond." Mason perked up. "There is." She nodded. "You must go before the council and publicly reject us. You must call us strangers." Luma looked away. Her hands trembled. Slightly, Mason felt a twist in his chest. It sounded simple, but the cost was deep. "Will it hurt you?" he asked. Luma didn't answer. Ziri looked serious now. "It will shame us," she said, "in front of our people. But you are free to choose." Later that afternoon, Mason stood before the village council. The elders wore heavy robes and curious eyes. The entire village gathered. Even children sat silently on the grass. Ziri and Luma stood across from him. Both looked calm. Their eyes told another story. The chief elder raised a hand. "Human." He said, "You were joined by ritual. But no bond holds against your will. Speak your truth." Mason swallowed hard. He looked at the faces watching, then at the 2 girls who had trusted him, cared for him. He opened his mouth, paused, then said, I came here to fix machines. I never thought I'd find anything else." Ziri raised her chin. Luma bit her lip. "I didn't understand your ways," Mason continued. "I still don't. But when I was hurt, these 2 cared for me. When I was alone, they sat beside me." He took a breath. "And when I gave them those tokens, I didn't know the meaning. But now I do." Luma's eyes widened. Ziri leaned forward, heart pounding. Mason turned to the elders. "I won't call them strangers," he said. "They may call me husband, but I call them family." Gasps rose from the crowd. Then cheering, Ziri ran to him and grabbed his hand. "You could have left," she said. "Why didn't you?" Mason smiled. "Because when I looked at you 2, I didn't feel like leaving." Luma joined them, gently wrapping her arms around both. For the first time, Mason didn't feel confused or trapped. He felt chosen. As the sky turned gold with the setting sun, the villagers began to sing. A new name was chanted. A name for Mason. Rotten. They said, "The one who stays." The drums beat louder than the wind that morning. Mason stood in the village square. Ziri and Luma stood on either side of him. Elders sat high on stone seats, watching with sharp eyes. A large crowd had gathered, some curious, others whispering. Doubts, after all. Mason was human, not of their world, not of their kind. But now he was claimed by 2 daughters of the tribe, and that had never happened before. The chief elder stood up and raised his hand. "By our laws," he said, "the human must face the 3 trials." Mason blinked. 3 trials. Ziri nodded. "They are not just for strength," she said. "They test your spirit. Your courage and your heart," Luma added quietly. "If you pass them, no one can question your bond again." Mason looked around. The crowd didn't cheer. They were waiting to see him fail. He took a breath and stepped forward. "All right," he said. "Let's do this." Trial 1. The Beast Pit Mason was led to a sunken arena surrounded by wooden walls. A gate creaked open, and a 4-legged beast entered covered in bone armor and growling low. "Kss." Ziri handed Mason a wooden spear. "Don't kill it," she whispered. "Just prove you can face it." The beast charged. Mason dove aside, rolled, and scrambled back to his feet. The crowd roared. The beast circled him again. Mason didn't attack. He remembered something Luma told him. They only attack when they feel fear in others. So Mason stood still. He lowered his spear and took a step forward, then another. The beast snarled, but then it stopped. It sniffed the air, tilted its head, and walked away. The crowd gasped. Ziri cheered. "You didn't fight," she said, grinning. "You understood." Trial 2. The Fire Walk by Sunset. Mason stood before a narrow bridge of heated stone. Steam hissed from every step. It stretched over a bed of glowing embers. "Only those who trust their path can cross," the elder said, "or else they burn." Luma gently pressed her fingers to his chest. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. But Mason smiled. "I want to." He stepped onto the bridge. Heat pressed into his soles like fire. Each step burned deeper, but he didn't stop. He remembered his time alone, the years working machines in silence, the emptiness before Ziri and Luma. He walked forward, step by step, slow and steady. When he reached the other side, the crowd was silent. Then the elder stood and declared, "His spirit is steady." Luma's eyes filled with tears. Ziri thumped his back and laughed. "You're halfway to being a legend," she joked. Trial 3. The Mirror of Truth. The final trial was held deep inside a cave. No torches, no sounds, just dark stone and silence. Mason was handed a small stone, smooth and cold. "Place this on the mirror," the elder said, "and face what you fear." Most Ziri squeezed his hand once. Luma kissed his forehead. "We'll wait outside," they said together. Mason stepped into the cave. The mirror sat alone, an alien metal with a surface like water. He placed the stone on it, and the surface rippled. Then he saw it. His reflection, but not as he was. Now he saw himself before, on Earth, alone in a dark room, eating cold food. Scrolling through news feeds without purpose, no one waiting for him, no one needing him. "You think this is who you are," the mirror whispered. "Just a fixer. Just a tool. Just a man passing time." Mason stared back. He clenched his fists. "No," he said firmly. "I may not be a warrior, but I'm more than a tool. I stayed when I could have left. I chose them." The reflection faded. The mirror glowed, and the stone cracked open, revealing a glowing white gem. When Mason stepped out, the village waited in silence. He held up the gem, and the crowd burst into cheers. Ziri tackled him with a laugh. "You did it." Luma hugged him gently. "You faced your truth," she said, "and didn't run." The chief elder raised his staff. "From this day forward," he said, "the human is one of us." That night, the sky glowed with twin moons. The village danced, drums beat like heartbeats. Mason stood between Ziri and Luma, not just as their accidental husband, but now truly their chosen one, and deep inside, he didn't want to be anywhere else. The celebration fire still burned low when the shadows shifted. Mason stood between Ziri and Luma. Smiling, the trials were over. The tribe had accepted him, but something in the wind had changed. A loud horn echoed across the clearing. Everyone turned. Warriors reached for weapons. From the northern path, 5 riders appeared, tall, armored, and silent. At the front road, a man with black hair tied in rings. A large scar crossed one cheek. He dismounted and looked directly at Ziri. "Ziri of the Flame Singers," he said, "you summoned me." Ziri's smile vanished. She stepped forward slowly. "I didn't summon you, Cathal," she said. "You came on your own, Cathal." Looked at Mason with cold eyes. This is him. This is the soft skin they sing about. Mason frowned. Soft skin. Ziri turned to Mason, her face tight. "This is Cathal," she said. "My old betrothed." Mason blinked. "Way too. We're engaged." "It was before I met you," Ziri said quickly. "It was never sealed." Cathal laughed. "And now you bond with a human." "Are you so desperate, Ziri?" Luma stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp. "She chose him," she said. "We both did." Cathal's eyes flicked to her. "2 mates for 1 man." He said, "Disgusting." The chief elder stepped forward. "Cathal, you are not of this tribe anymore." He said, "You left to chase wars. I came back to claim what was mine." Cathal growled, "I challenge him." The crowd gasped. Ziri's fists clenched. Luma's hand trembled in Mason's. "You can't challenge him," Ziri said. "He already passed the trials." Cathal smiled coldly. "Then let's make it a test of honor." He said, "Not to the death, just to truth." Mason stepped forward. "What does that mean?" Cathal threw a heavy stick onto the ground, a long curved weapon like a spear with a flat head. "A bonding game," he said. "Ancient tradition, we stand in the center of the circle. No weapons, no fists, just the game. If I win, Ziri is free." The crowd murmured. Ziri turned to Mason. "You don't have to do this," she said. "I already chose you." Mason looked at her, then at Cathal. He didn't want to fight, but he wasn't going to back down. He stepped into the circle. "I'll play," he said. For Ziri, the rules were strange. Each player tried to knock the other's stick to the ground. No pushing, no hitting, just speed and skill. The circle filled with drums. The villagers watched in silence. Cathal smirked as he spun the stick in his hand. "You'll last 5 breaths." He said. They circled each other. Cathal struck. First, fast. Mason blocked, barely, then stumbled. Cathal laughed. "Still weak," he said. Mason didn't speak. He remembered Ziri's advice. "Don't rush," she had said. Cathal uses anger. You use balance. Cathal lunged again, but Mason twisted. Their sticks clashed. And Cathal's grip slipped. The crowd gasped. Mason breathed slowly. He didn't need to win with strength. He just had to outlast another strike, another dodge, then, with a quiet step forward, Mason knocked Cathal's stick clean out of his hand. It hit the ground with a dull thud. The circle went silent. Cathala stood frozen. Shocked, Ziri stepped beside Mason. Eyes fierce and proud. "You lost." She said to Cathal, "Leave." Cathal's jaw clenched. He turned without a word. His riders followed. Disappearing into the trees, Mason turned to Ziri. "You sure he's not coming back?" She grinned. "Not after that." Luma stepped closer and gently touched Mason's arm. "You did not fight to win," she said. "You played to protect." The chief elder raised his hands. "The bond holds strong," he said, "and so does the human's heart." That night, there was no feast, just quiet firelight. Mason sat between Ziri and Luma again. They didn't speak much, but they didn't need to, because even in silence, they understood each other now, and Mason, for the first time in his life, didn't feel like an outsider. He felt like someone worth choosing. The days after the challenge felt different. Mason noticed it first in the way Ziri laughed louder than usual, and how Luma grew quieter. They still sat with him, still smiled, but something had shifted beneath the surface. One morning, Mason woke up early. He stepped outside to find Luma alone by the river. She dipped her fingers into the water and stared at the ripples. Couldn't sleep either. He asked, walking closer. She looked up, a faint smile on her lips. "The stars feel heavy lately," she said. He sat beside her. "They're just stars," he said. "But yeah, I feel it too." Luma turned to him, her eyes soft. "Ziri is brave but also afraid," she said. "She hides it behind her fire." Mason frowned. "Afraid of what?" "Of losing," Luma whispered. "Of being one half when she wants to be your only." Mason didn't know what to say. He liked them both, respected them, but now he saw the problem he hadn't wanted to face. They both loved him, and while they were once united, now they were drifting apart. Later that day, Ziri found Mason fixing a wind panel near the edge of the village. She crossed her arms and leaned on a post, watching him work. "You're spending a lot of time with Luma," she said. Mason wiped sweat from his brow. She needed to talk. Ziri's eyes narrowed slightly. "And what did she say?" "That you're afraid," Mason said honestly. "That this whole thing, us, feels uncertain." Ziri looked away for a moment, then stepped forward. "I've never had to share," she said. "I've always fought for what's mine. I'm not a prize," Mason said gently. "And neither is Luma." Ziri met his gaze. "No," she said, "but we both think you're worth fighting for." Mason placed his tools down and stepped closer. "I didn't mean to cause this," he said. "When I helped you both, it came from the same place. Not confusion, not duty. Just care." Ziri didn't speak, but she took his hand and held it tightly. "I just don't want to lose what we have," she whispered. "You won't," Mason said. "But we have to make sure we don't lose each other." That evening, the air felt colder. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. The tribe began moving tools and animals under shelter. Elders muttered of bad omens. Children were told to stay inside. Ziri and Luma helped gather herbs and supplies, but never spoke to each other. Mason watched from the center of the village. And for the first time since arriving, he felt alone again. The wind howled louder as night came, and with it, something strange. A dark light flickered in the forest. Not fire, not lightning. Something wrong. Ziri grabbed her spear and moved toward the edge of the trees. Luma followed, but stopped short when Mason caught up. "You both feel that, right?" he asked. Ziri nodded. "Shadow travelers," she said. "Old enemies from the deep lands. They come when bonds weaken." Luma added quietly. "They feed on broken hearts." Mason looked between them. "This is because of us." Ziri gritted her teeth. "If we're not whole, they can enter." The village alarms rang out. Horns echoed across the hills. Everyone began to gather in a tight circle. The chief elder raised a torch and looked at Mason. "Your union brought light," he said, "but your rift may bring darkness." Mason's heart pounded. He turned to Ziri and Luma. He couldn't let their pain become danger for others. So right there, in front of everyone, he dropped to one knee, not because it was tradition, not because it was expected, but because he chose it. He looked up at both of them and said, "I didn't come here to be a husband, but I became one because I care about you both. I don't want you to fight over me. I want us to stand together." Ziri's eyes softened. Luma covered her mouth, moved by his words. "You both make me better," he continued, "and I don't want just one of you. I want Issa's." We were at the start. Silence followed. Then Ziri reached out her hand. Luma took it gently, and both pulled Mason to his feet. The dark light in the woods flickered again, but this time, it vanished, the bond it held, and the storm passed without a drop of rain. The warning drums beat again, but this time they did not stop. Mason rushed out of the hut with his jacket half done. Ziri already stood outside with her spear. Luma was helping carry children toward the caves. Smoke rose in the east. Shadows moved fast between the trees. And the horns cried out again. "They came back," Ziri said. "Shadow raiders." Mason looked toward the forest. Shapes too tall and thin to be human crept closer. Their armor pulsed with a sick purple glow. "We have to hold the north path," she said. "If they reach the elder huts, the tribe will fall." "I'll go," Mason said quickly. Ziri frowned. "No," she said. "You're not a fighter." "I don't need to be," he replied. "I just need to keep them back long enough." Luma stepped forward, placing something in his hand. It was a glowing stone warm, like a heartbeat. "What is it?" he asked. "It's called the soul light," she said softly. "If you hold it close, it will protect your mind from their whispers." Mason didn't ask questions. He slipped it into his chest pocket and followed Ziri toward the defense lines. The forest burned with violet light. Screeches echoed through the valley. Ziri stood tall, her spear ready, beside her. Mason held a shield made from heat panels and scrap metal. The shadow raiders charged. Faster than any human should run, eyes glowing like fire under their masks. Ziri let out a war cry and met them. Head on, her spear danced like flame, each strike pushing the enemy back. Mason stayed low, defending a narrow path behind her. One raider rushed toward a group of elders. Mason threw himself forward. Blocking with his shield, the impact knocked him to the ground. But the soul light pulsed in his pocket, and the whispers that filled his ears faded. He swung a broken pipe and hit the raider's knee. It fell with a screech, and Ziri finished it with a single strike. "Still think I'm not a fighter?" Mason panted. Ziri grinned through the sweat and fire. "You're something else," she said. More raiders came. This time they tried to flank, but Luma appeared behind them, quiet and calm. Throwing powder into the wind, the powder glowed. The raiders stumbled, blinded. Their armor melted where it touched their skin. Luma's face was covered in ritual markings. She wasn't just gentle, she was powerful. And Mason saw her in a new light. The battle raged for hours, but the villagers held their ground. Mason fought beside Ziri, defended the weak, and guided the injured to safety. At one point, he was surrounded. 3 raiders closed in, hissing and whispering strange words. But before they could reach him, Luma screamed his name, and a wave of sound shattered the air. The raiders dropped, motionless. Mason turned to her, breathless. She looked terrified at what she had done, but he only nodded. "You saved me." The last of the enemy fled into the woods as the sun began to rise. The drums stopped, the fires cooled, and silence returned to the village. Ziri limped toward Mason and dropped her spear. Blood ran down her arm. He caught her before she fell. "You all right?" he asked. "I'll live," she said, smiling weakly. Luma joined them, her voice soft and shaking. I didn't mean to hurt them so badly," she whispered. "You did what you had to do," Mason said. "And you protected us all." They stood there, the 3 of them, side by side, bruised, burned, but alive. The tribe slowly emerged from hiding. Elders bowed their heads in respect. Children ran to hug Ziri and Luma. And some even hugged Mason, calling him shield-bearer, calling him brother. That night, under the stars, the 3 sat by the quiet river. Mason held their hands in his. He looked at the water, then at the sky. "I don't know what tomorrow brings," he said, "but I know this. I will never leave your side." Ziri leaned her head on his shoulder. Luma rested against his arm, and in that peaceful silence, he finally stopped thinking about where he came from, because he knew this was where he belonged now. The village stood still as the sun rose. Ashes from the fires drifted in the morning air. Smoke curled like threads through the trees. But peace had returned. Mason walked through the camp with slow steps. Children waved at him. Elders bowed their heads as he passed. They no longer saw him as a stranger. Now he was the one who stayed. But inside Mason's heart, a storm still stirred. That afternoon, the chief elder called for a gathering. The fire circle was rebuilt, and the whole tribe sat quietly. Ziri and Luma sat apart from each other. Both wore ceremonial robes. But neither smiled. The elder stood. Long ago, he said, only one may bond with one, but never in. Our history has one heart been chosen by two. He looked at Mason, and never has one man accepted both. Mason stepped into the center of the fire circle. He looked at the crowd, then at Ziri, then Luma. I came here by accident, he said. I helped without thinking. I gave my time, my kindness, my heart. He turned slowly and along the way. I didn't fall for one of you. I fell for both, the crowd whispered. Ziri's eyes widened. Luma held her breath. Mason faced the chief. If this tribe must choose, he said, then let it be known I choose. I choose Ziri, who fights with fire but protects with soul. I choose Luma, who speaks softly but carries the strongest heart I've known. I won't leave one for the other. I will walk beside both. The chief's voice was firm. But our traditions, Ziri stood up. Then let the tradition change, she said loudly. Luma rose too, her voice steady. We are not rivals, she said. We are sisters in spirit. The elder blinked, then slowly turned to the crowd. Is there any who challenge this union? He asked. No one spoke, not a single voice. Instead, the oldest woman in the tribe stepped forward. Her hair was silver, her eyes full of light. She raised her staff and smiled. Love is not small, she said. It grows where it is fed. Let this be a new path. Let their bond be the first of its kind. The tribe cheered. Drums began to beat again. But this time, not for war, for celebration, as the sun dipped below the hills. Ziri took Mason's left hand. Luma took his right. They stood under the twin moons, wrapped in robes of red and gold, their hands tied with woven grass. You will not walk in front of us, Ziri said. Nor behind, Luma added. But with us they finished together. Mason smiled. His heart felt full. He didn't belong to just one world anymore. He belonged here, as the fire burned bright. Children danced around them. Elders sang old songs with new words. Mason looked at Ziri. You were my fire, he said. Then he looked at Luma, and you were my calm. Ziri laughed, and now you are our balance. Later that night, when the songs faded and only embers glowed, Mason sat with the two beside the river. I never thought helping someone would lead to this, he said quietly. Luma rested her head on his shoulder. That's what kindness does, she whispered. It grows into something no one expects. Ziri leaned against him, and when you least expect it, she added, it becomes home. Mason looked up at the stars. He no longer missed Earth. He no longer asked, what if? Because here, in this strange world, he had found love, purpose, and peace. He kissed Ziri's forehead, then Luma's, and whispered, thank you for choosing me. Luma smiled softly. No, she said. We thank you, Mason, for never walking away. And as the river flowed quietly beside them, the stars above bore witness to a love that didn't fit old rules, but rewrote new ones instead.